They thought they could control me with a $500 fine. What they didn't know was I had millions of reasons, and every ounce of spite, to fight back. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's about how one HOA pushed too far and lost the one thing they valued most. Until a year ago, I thought I had life figured out. 15 years in venture capital had left me financially free, and at 42, I retired early with enough saved to focus on what truly mattered, my family. But money couldn't save Rachel, my wife, when cancer came. Her fight lasted 3 years, and when she passed, it left me alone with our 14-year-old daughter, Soren. Grief hollowed out our lives. The only moments of peace came when we picked up our fishing rods. Fishing had always been our tradition, the one thing that made Rachel laugh even on her hardest days. Casting a line into still water was more than a hobby, it was a lifeline. So, when I searched for a new home, I looked for somewhere with water, somewhere peaceful, somewhere that might help us heal. That's how I found Lakeside Estates. The community seemed perfect, upscale homes, good schools, and a 6-acre lake right at its heart. The realtor mentioned an HOA, but brushed it off as standard stuff. I didn't think twice. On paper, it looked like the ideal place to rebuild our lives. What I didn't realize then was that perfect was about to turn into a nightmare. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning. The sun was just breaking through the trees, the lake still rippling with mist. Soren and I sat on the small dock, lines cast into the water. She had just reeled in a small bluegill, her first genuine smile in weeks, when I heard it, heels clicking on the wood, followed by a voice sharp enough to slice glass. "Excuse me, what do you think you're doing?" I turned to see her, late 50s, athleisure clothes too polished for a Saturday morning, blonde hair in the universal, "I want to speak to the manager" cut. She didn't introduce herself. She just pulled out a tablet and tapped furiously. "Fishing," I explained calmly, introducing myself as a new resident. She ignored my hand. Instead, she announced herself like royalty. "I'm Karen Wellington, HOA president. Fishing is prohibited. You're in violation. The fine is $500. Soren froze beside me. Her hands trembled. I tried to reason with Karen. The realtor had told us fishing was an amenity, the lake was clearly stocked, but she dismissed me with a thin smile. Ignorance of the rules is not an excuse. Soren's eyes welled with tears. This was supposed to be our healing place, and instead it became humiliation. That's when I realized this wasn't about fishing. It was about control. That night, after tucking Soren into bed, I sat at my desk replaying every word Karen had said. Something didn't add up. Why would a community lake suddenly ban fishing? I pulled up the HOA documents, then county property records. What I found changed everything. The HOA didn't own the lake. The original developer still did, and their 30-year lease to the HOA was set to expire in just a few months. Meaning, someone else could buy it. The next day, fate introduced me to Merrick Henderson, a retired attorney walking his dog past my house. When I mentioned Karen's fine, his expression soured. "Ah, the neighborhood dictator," he muttered. Over coffee, he shared stories of her reign, families fined into selling their homes, petty rules enforced on new residents while her friends got away with violations. And then he told me the bombshell. Karen had been in private talks with the developer. She wasn't banning fishing for environmental reasons. She was preparing to buy the lake herself, cut access, and build luxury homes along the shore. Later, another neighbor, Samuel Washington, a retired banker, showed me his records. For years, Karen had used shell companies to snap up undervalued properties she'd tanked with fines. The lake wasn't about protecting property values. It was her endgame. And that's when I knew, if I wanted to save the lake, I had to beat her at her own game. Over the next few weeks, Merrick introduced me to others who had suffered under Karen's rule. A teacher fined for Christmas lights, a widow harassed with bogus inspections, a family whose foster kids were banned from the pool. Each story followed the same pattern. Karen identified, isolated, and punished until they broke. We began meeting in secret, sometimes in Samuel's study, sometimes at the local library, once even in the back room of a bakery. At first, it felt like venting. But gradually, a plan took shape. Karen's weakness was money. On paper, she looked successful: Wellington properties, luxury listings, endless parties. But Samuel's financial sleuthing uncovered the truth. She was drowning in debt, propped up only by loans and the promise of her next big development. If the lake deal collapsed, so would she. As I listened, a familiar feeling stirred inside me, the same one I'd had spotting distressed companies back in my venture capital days. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about strategy. If we move fast, I told the group, we can stop her. I'll buy the lake before she does. They stared at me in disbelief. But I wasn't bluffing. I had the money, and more importantly, I had the motive. Karen thought she controlled the rules. She had no idea the game was about to change. Through a contact Samuel knew, I arranged a meeting with the developer's executive. We met in a downtown law office, far away from neighborhood gossip. The man didn't sugarcoat it. Their company was in financial trouble, and the lake, valued at $300,000, was one of their last unencumbered assets. Karen's offer is complicated, he admitted. Payments spread over 18 months, lots of financing hoops. Frankly, we need cash. That was my opening. I leaned in. What if I could do $350,000? All cash. 7 days. His eyebrows shot up. Within a week, I had a preliminary agreement. To keep it quiet, I used an LLC I'd set up, Thorncroft Holdings. On paper, it was just another investor. In reality, it was me. I signed the deed. The lake, every drop of water, every inch of shoreline, was mine. But I didn't tell a soul. Not Merrick, not Samuel, not even Soren. Not yet. Because I wanted Karen to go all in. To stand before the entire community, bragging about her grand plans, while the ground beneath her crumbled. This was no longer just about a fine. It was about turning the tables completely. But Karen wasn't going down quietly. Somehow, she sensed I was stirring trouble. Suddenly, I was buried in violation notices. My grass was 1/4 inch too high. My mailbox was the wrong shade of taupe. Even my daughter's bicycle, left in the driveway for 15 minutes, earned us a fine, complete with time-stamped photos. Soren came home from school crying. Her classmates whispered that we were troublemakers, bringing down property values. The rumors traced back to Karen's inner circle. My daughter had already lost her mother. Now she was being targeted in her own neighborhood. One night, I told Merrick I was thinking of selling. Moving away. He leaned forward, eyes sharp. That's exactly what she wants. Don't give her the satisfaction. Stand your ground. He was right. Walking away would be teaching my daughter the wrong lesson, that bullies win when you stay silent. And so I decided I wasn't just going to fight. I was going to win. Karen planned her victory lap in the form of a massive lakeside party. She invited her allies, hired caterers, and even had banners showing future development plans. She strutted around as if the lake already belonged to her. That's when I made my move. I arrived with Merrick, Samuel, my attorney, and a uniformed police officer. Karen was mid-speech when I took the microphone. She tried to snatch it back, but I held firm. Good afternoon, neighbors, I began. I'm afraid there's been some confusion about who owns this lake. The crowd fell silent. My attorney handed me the deed. I raised it high. As of last week, this lake is private property. My property. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face turned scarlet. You can't do this. The HOA has no rights, I cut in. Your lease expired. And as of now, you're all trespassing. I nodded to the officer. He stepped forward, reminding everyone that refusal to leave could result in charges. Within minutes, the party dissolved, residents streaming out, some glaring at Karen, others whispering their support to me. For the first time, the Queen of Lakeside Estates was dethroned. In the days that followed, I wasted no time. I posted clear, private property signs. I hired security to patrol the lake. The HOA tried to fight back, but with the deed in my hand, they had no ground. Meanwhile, I announced something new. The lake would become a conservation and education space. Children could fish, learn about ecology, and enjoy the outdoors. But with one condition: Families of the current HOA board were excluded until their parents resigned. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The same people who had sneered at me weeks ago now came knocking, asking if their kids could join the program. Slowly, board members began resigning. Karen's empire was collapsing from within. The lake wasn't just mine anymore. It had become a symbol, for every neighbor tired of being bullied, for every family silenced by her rules. Standing at the edge of the dock one evening, I watched Soren cast her line into the water. She was smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. "This feels like Mom's spot," she whispered. And it did. The HOA tried to take that away from us. They tried to break us with fines, rumors, and intimidation. But in the end, they only pushed me to fight harder. I didn't buy the lake out of greed. I bought it to protect what mattered: my family, my daughter, and the memories we shared. Sometimes, standing up to bullies means taking away the one thing they thought they controlled. The day I bought the lake, I became the most hated man in Lakeside Estates. But to my daughter, I became something more: proof that we don't bow to tyrants. The HOA fined me for fishing. Now, the lake is ours forever.